Can you comment on the appropriateness of bailouts? Heaven forbid another crash, but if it happened again, should the U.S. bail out another large financial institution? The whole too big to fail Dodd-Frank, go at it.
Well, so let me separate bailouts from too big to fail. No, I don't think the government should be doing bailouts.
Okay.
I understand why the government did what it did, but no, I'm an advocate of bailouts. No, I'm not. But the only thing I get a little nervous, the moniker too big to fail is a little unfortunate. Let's go back to '08. If the big banks had been a tenth the size, would the crisis have been less bad? In my view, no. Why? Where were the worst practices? Countrywide. The broker-dealer community, which I came from, so I can say this, they were not banks at the time of the crisis. AIG was not a bank. They ultimately, some of those institutions became banks, and ironically, you may remember Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, and even B of A was used. B of A bought Merrill Lynch at the behest of the government and Countrywide. Wells Fargo made acquisitions, and we know JP Morgan bought Bear Stearns, etc. The banks today, if we roll forward, I worry about three things: capital, liquidity, and interconnectedness. The bank capital is much stronger, their balance sheets are much more liquid, and they're much less interconnected. I worry in '08 that the shadow system, is what I was saying earlier, was where a lot of this liquidity, interconnectedness, and lack of capital made things worse. So I feel like we're making good progress through Dodd-Frank and our work with the banks. Not perfect, but I think we're making good progress. I'm much more worried today on what's going on outside the regulated banking system. And I want to make sure, if I had to advocate something, I'd want to make sure we're watching practices outside the regulated banks. But size in and of itself is not necessarily an indicator of systemic risk. AIG was tiny. It created enormous systemic risk. So I'd rather we used our Geiger counter was for where, again, we have lack of capital, illiquidity, and interconnectedness, so that creates systemic risk of significance that may not necessarily be correlated with size. That may be a red herring, and so I want to make sure we're looking for those situations currently.
Excellent, thank you.